My brother is pissed that I let his pregnant ex-wife live in my apartment instead of him and his new wife, but after trying to turn the family against me, he ends up being the poor villain. So my brother has officially decided that I'm the most selfish person on the planet because I let his pregnant ex-wife move in with me instead of giving my apartment to him and the woman he left her for. It sounds ridiculous, but it's because my brother is a ridiculous person. If there are any scientists on Reddit, I'd like to know how we could have possibly come from the same womb. And apparently, in my family's world, all of this makes perfect sense. I have only one brother, this specimen, who I don't need to be told is the golden child. Everything he did was special, and mistakes were minimized to the point that Zerges from 300 was a mere employee compared to the godlike status my brother had and has. If I failed a class, someone had to be blamed, like the teacher or the weather. If I crashed a car, it was either the weather or some teacher's fault. Yes, the excuses weren't too creative. That's the basis of our family dynamic. He's indulged. They told me she was probably friends with that teacher or had manipulated the atmosphere to justify my brother. Years ago, my brother married Lauren, a woman whose innocence I don't know because she wasn't just too much for him. I felt sorry for her because she was getting close to a narcissist like my brother. She's one of the kindest and most patient people I've ever met. She put up with a lot from him and still somehow managed to keep the family together and happy. Everyone liked her. I really liked her. And no, I didn't like her that way. At the moment, I like men. In fact, I felt like she was more my sister, that my brother was my brother. She's one of those people you like from the first moment. You wonder how you're feeling, if she's really listening. She was the antithesis of my brother, proof that opposites attract. And then she got pregnant. I was so excited. He told me before other family members because he literally radiated happiness, and I had to ask. And of course, that was the exact moment my brother decided to blow his life up. He started an affair with another woman, whom I'll call Holly. And he didn't just cheat on her. He decided to leave Lauren completely while she was pregnant. He wanted to live up to his legend, so he didn't want to just sneak around or have a slip-up. He went out with a bang and told Lauren he didn't want that life anymore. Before long, Holly was everywhere, living in their house, presenting herself as the new wife she eventually became. He married her so quickly that it made everyone's head spin. And the family's reaction was an absolute disaster. Instead of being horrified that their son would abandon his pregnant wife, my parents and several other relatives went out of their way to make Holly feel welcome. They'd say things like, well, sometimes people just fall out of love and you just have to give them a chance. Meanwhile, Lauren was discarded, pregnant, and heartbroken. I was the only one who actually stuck by her because it was the real thing to do. It got worse because my brother basically kicked Lauren out of the house so Holly could move in. Yes, he made his pregnant wife leave so his mistress-turned-new wife could decorate and cheer. I still can't believe that happened, but it did. And of course, Lauren was devastated. She didn't know where to turn. She had some money from her job, but not enough to live on her own. One night she called me crying and asked if she could stay at my house. She apologized like I was a burden for even asking, which broke my heart. I live alone in a nice 2-bedroom apartment. I have a steady job, and honestly, it didn't even bother me. This way, I could live with my adopted sister and finally have a decent sibling relationship. And it was okay. Better than okay. It was respectful, grateful, and helped with things around the house that didn't require a lot of effort. I was pregnant. I wasn't going to ask him to climb a ladder to clean the cobwebs from the ceiling. I helped her with some doctor's appointments. We started looking at baby things, and she was more or less on the mend. For me, it wasn't even a question of whether I should do it. It was the obvious, decent thing to do. Then my brother found out, and holy crap, he flooded my phone with texts accusing me of being selfish, of betraying him, of taking sides. He said that what I should have done, brace yourself, was let him and Holly move into my apartment. That apparently would have been the right and fair thing to do. He literally thought I should give up my apartment to him and his mistress, and Lauren, the pregnant woman he abandoned, should figure it out however she could. I laughed when he first said that because I thought it was a joke. I mean, he has a house. I don't understand why he would want to move in with me. But he wasn't totally serious. Apparently, he had a house, but without Lauren's income and with Holly's non-income, and because his mistress couldn't work, continuing to pay for the house for much longer would be difficult. Besides, my apartment is close to everything, including my brother's job. And if that weren't enough, Special Holly liked the idea of living downtown. Of course, because she was going to put my brother in my apartment next to the shiny object that made him run away from his responsibility as a father. And I told her so. And no, she wasn't pleased when I spoke to her in those terms and told her that Holly is a shiny object. Nor was she pleased when I told her her brains were frozen if she thought of living with me. When I didn't give in, she went to accuse me to the family because that's what she knows how to do. She has no tools to face her mistakes, so I always went to cry to them. Soon after, I was invited to a family gathering. I went thinking it was something else and ended up falling right into a trap. In my defense, up until that moment, I didn't know he'd been accusing me. It was an intervention for me to learn to accept Holly into the family and let go of Lauren. Their expectations were that I should support my brother in his new life, that Holly is a person and deserves a chance too, all because I called her a shiny object and some other crap. I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention when I turned to leave. It was a poor attempt at manipulation to get me to kick out a pregnant woman so my brother could play house with his mistress in my apartment. But here, the unthinkable happened. Imagine something you think could never happen, but you'd love it if I were you. Waking up one morning, opening the window, and seeing a dinosaur walking across the city next to my apartment and waving its tiny hand at me. Well, better than that. But first, my parents came to my apartment to reason with me, and Lauren was there. Upon hearing my parents' rebukes, she came out of her room since she'd given us space to talk, to tell me, crying, that she didn't want to cause problems and that she would move out if it would destroy my family relationship. That's when everything came out. My brother had told everyone in the family that Lauren had already left him when she started the relationship with Holly, and that I was defending her because she was a woman and because I'd always liked her. She even went so far as to say that she had doubts about the paternity of the baby. The only thing she needed to say was that a teacher got Lauren pregnant. Also, the weather. That would have been pretty cool to hear, since the weather connects with everything. So there was a miracle, a Christmas one, only it was March and it came early. They started siding with Lauren when we told them it was all a lie and that Lauren wasn't living with me because she'd accepted a mistress or something like that. They left, but they started talking to the rest of the family and finding new allies. Suddenly, messages and calls started pouring in offering Lauren help. Someone offered money, and another person knew a child support lawyer who would empty my brother's pockets faster than Holly can say platypus. That person's words, not mine. Another said they would set up a baby fund. He became a total supporter of Lauren. And then, of course, my brother lost his mind with messages so furious he couldn't type properly, and they were almost
a full-time job to understand what he meant. According to him, Lauren and I had poisoned his family against him. How unfair that as a brother, my loyalty should be to him and whoever he's chosen to share his life with. But I replied that I did that with Lauren, his ex-wife, with whom he'd first chosen to spend his life. Now there's great family support, a team Lauren. I even think there are people who didn't like Holly too much from the start and are seizing their opportunity here, which I find impressive, because perhaps from more distant relatives I'd expect it, but from my own parents? The greeting dinosaur seemed more likely than that. Edit. No, I didn't know what my parents or other relatives knew about the subject. I'd opted long ago to steer clear unless it was a big event, a big event as I thought the ambush would be. Previously, when my parents found out my brother was lying, they decided to look the other way. But it seems even my parents have a limit, which seems incredible, and that is abandoning their pregnant daughter-in-law, who apparently hadn't cheated on him, and the baby wasn't his. Update 1. Several people asked for an update, and my goodness, I do. Until recently, all I was going to do was update you on the shape and color of the dinosaur in my dream, but I have something better. When I originally posted, I thought it would just be a family redemption story, but the clowning around reached new levels with my brother. First, Lauren is doing well, better than fine. In fact, she already has a child custody and support attorney thanks to my extended family, who basically set up a fundraising committee for her. I had to look up a picture of her online, because Lauren said she had to see it. Apparently, she wasn't lying when she said her face looked like someone who had a breakfast of nails that morning. We're also getting tons of baby stuff from family. I don't know if it will all fit in the apartment, but the stuff they've bought for her is impressive. A way of saying, I'm sorry for believing your stupid ex-husband, and sorry he's family. My brother, who the family now calls stupid, looked for a way to clean up his and Holly's image a little, because apparently they thought the best way to fix their image was to have a big family barbecue at their house. Except, plot twist, wasn't really a barbecue. There wasn't even food. There were a few people already, but when they saw there wasn't even anything to eat, it kind of turned those people off even more. It gets spicy around here. One of my cousins, who has no filter and brings chaos to us every time she breathes, went to that barbecue. She was the first to start screaming, "And where's the food? This is why they brought us here." When my brother started calming down the angry, hungry mob, things got worse. You don't tell a hungry lion to calm down, because the moment you start waving your arm, the lion is the first thing to take off. And that was my cousin. "You bring us all the way out here to look at your stupid face and there's no food? What do you think? We're here because we like you? Order some pizzas right now or we're leaving. We don't want to spend too much time with you or the replacement wife." My brother tried to stop them, but they all went to a nearby restaurant to eat. Lauren's lawyer sent my brother some papers where Lauren offered to do a DNA test on the baby when it's born, but he'll have to pay a hefty alimony payment. Apparently, he was freaking out because he was already struggling to pay the rent, and this was the last thing he expected. He tried to confront Lauren directly by coming to my apartment. He was screaming outside in the hallway, waiting for me to open the door. My neighbors called the police. I didn't even open the door. I stayed inside eating chips while he melted in the hallway. And for dessert, apparently Holly had a meltdown after that. It said she didn't sign up for all the drama and is realizing that being the cum-wife's mistress doesn't bring the glamorous life she imagined. Apparently she's been crying to my mom about how hard it is.
Is that now everyone looks at her differently. My mom told her next time she's looking for a man without a wife and a baby on the way. Family gossip also says that Holly's parents aren't thrilled either. They were already embarrassed by how their daughter ended up with a married man, but now that there are legal issues and the entire extended family knows the details, they've apparently started to distance themselves. So Holly is basically isolated with my brother while Lauren has an army surrounding her. Sometimes karma is delicious. Now we just have to wait for the birth, follow all the procedures the lawyer told her about, and then bury my brother up to his neck in debt. Update 2. First, Lauren had the baby, a beautiful, healthy baby girl. I was with her at the hospital because she asked me to, and it was one of the most surreal and emotional experiences of my life. I'm not the mother, and I cried like an idiot, maybe because her hands were tiny. Lauren was amazing, and the baby is perfect. She has a mane consisting of 3 hairs and tiny fists that already look ready to land a right hook on my brother. How could he not love my niece? Would you think the birth of a daughter would bring some joy? Well, yes, but not for my brother. My brother could have acted like a human being for 5 minutes? No, obviously not. He showed up at the hospital with Holly, uninvited. Lauren didn't want him there. He wasn't at any appointments. He didn't provide financial support, nothing. He found out I was in labor because a relative had posted a lot of luck on Facebook, and he saw in no time he was storming into the maternity ward demanding to see his daughter. Security had to intervene because Lauren was literally crying that she didn't want him, and instead of respecting him, he yelled about parental rights in the middle of the hallway. Holly stood behind him looking like she wanted to be swallowed up. Eventually, he was escorted out and Lauren was able to have peace. But the nerve is unreal. This guy is going to fight to avoid paying child support, but he still wants to see her. Then, not even 24 hours after the birth, Lauren's lawyer asked for emergency custody and support. She also asked for some of the expenses Lauren has incurred during her pregnancy. A DNA test was also ordered, with obvious results. That's just in case my brother tried to dispute paternity. They had screenshots where my brother admitted he didn't want the baby. They had evidence that he cut her off financially. They had testimony from family members about his abandonment. The judge granted Lauren primary custody right then and there. My brother got supervised visitation, meaning if he wants to see his daughter, someone else must be present. The icing on the cake was that he was also ordered to pay child support, and apparently it's more than he bargained for. The man complained about how unfair it is to fund Lauren's lifestyle. But she's your daughter, and you have to buy her food and diapers for 18 years. Well, let's hope not so much diapers. Meanwhile, Holly is stuck trying to figure out what to do. My brother has less income and the house will soon be history. Apparently, she thought marrying my brother would give her a fairy tale life, but instead she's with a broke guy. Juicy detail. Lauren named the baby her last name, right? My brother's. When she found out, she lost her mind. She said it was disrespectful and has been fighting it with her lawyer. Lauren's lawyer reminded her that she had the right to do that because up until now, she didn't care about the baby at all. That maybe the child support she has to pay wasn't letting her think very straight. My brother sent me a delusional headline that I stole his family and that Lauren and I are seedless. He's also convinced the baby will hate him one day because of what Lauren tells her. In reality, she'll probably hate him because the kids grow up and she'll know what he did to their mom. An extra icing on the cake, Holly went to family dinner without him because he's so stressed, and she spent the entire night complaining about not having enough money for everything. She said it's hard because everyone is focused on the baby. That's what happens most often these days when a real baby is born, not one that's like 400 months old. Update 3. I like to start by talking about Lauren and the baby, who are doing very well, because I think it's more important than my brother. The baby girl is healthy, growing fast, and has a little smile that lights up everything. Lauren adapted to motherhood like a champ. She's tired, of course, but happy. Her lawyer handles all the legal aspects and takes care of her fights. We still live together, but we've talked about her eventually finding her own place. Not because I want her to leave, but because she wants to stand on her own 2 feet again. She hasn't returned to work yet, but when she plans to, she'll look for something that will give her more money so she can move into her own place. My brother keeps complaining, wasting money on his lawyer to reduce the child support payments and get more custody rights, but until now, he didn't care about the baby, and the judge knows that. Besides, the judge already knows everything he did while Lauren was pregnant, so it will be difficult to convince him that he wants to be a father and not just have custody to reduce the child support payments. His lease is up soon, and since he's already exhausted his savings, they also plan to look for something more affordable. The most dramatic moment was a couple of weeks ago at one of those big family birthday parties where everyone is involved. Lauren showed up with the baby, and obviously everyone crowded around. My brother and Holly arrived late, and as soon as they walked in, the attention went back to Lauren and the baby. He tried to butt into the moment, but Lauren wouldn't have it. It's costing my brother a lot of things, including money, but the loss of attention is what hurts him the most because he can't compete with a baby and he's going crazy. Later, my brother tried to make a scene by demanding to hold the baby. Lauren told him no, not unless visitation is supervised as ordered by the court. He exploded, yelling about his rights and how Lauren uses the system against him. But Lauren asked him if he had paid the last month of child support, which was a little late, and that made him even angrier. Finally, my dad, the same one who defended my brother's every move in his youth, told him to shut up and sit down. Eventually, he grabbed his things and Holly and left. Since then, my brother and Holly have been more or less isolated. People tolerate them out of commitment, but all the attention goes to Lauren and the baby. And honestly, watching him simmer in the background while Lauren receives the affection has been the most satisfying karma I've ever experienced. Their relationship isn't going well either. So far, she's still with him, but I think that will change soon when they have to leave the house and have to live in a small apartment that probably isn't even in the best part of town. That's why he wanted to move in with me, so he wouldn't pay rent or only a small portion of it. Every now and then, my brother texts me late at night, after probably knocking back a few bottles of alcohol. I never respond, but it's always along the same lines, that accepting Lauren into my apartment ruined his life, that I shouldn't have come between Lauren and him because it was just between them. But if I hadn't, I'd be just as bad as he is. I love my niece more than I imagined, and I'm grateful I made this decision. My house is noisier and messier, but I love it that way. Thanks to all of this, the family has also opened its eyes. Most people finally support those they deserve. I feel sorry for my brother for breaking his bubble where everyone loved him and pampered him as if he were 6 months old. I'm also sorry that his life was ruined in such a way, but I don't really regret anything because it's what he always deserved. Maybe if he had been a better human being, none of this would have happened. Maybe he would have a loving wife who loves him, a daughter who would soon call him dad, and a supportive family. But instead, he was a horrible cheater who ended up under the rubble he himself caused. And since he's never been responsible for anything in his life, he can't realize that he's also responsible for this. If he knew, he wouldn't be wasting his time with me today. He'd be trying to fix his life to at least be a good father to his daughter. But I don't think miracles are that common. One has been too much for my whole life. Update 4. We've reached the end
of my saga because Lauren has moved out of my apartment. It's hard to see it so empty. I'm already used to what it means to have a baby living here. But it's only fair that she starts making a life for herself, and with her new job, which is paying better than her old one, plus my brother's alimony, she can afford a small apartment that's not that far from here. So every other day I go to visit or they come to visit here. My brother has stopped trying to appeal the child support payment. It's not like they pay on time, but with a letter from Lauren's lawyer, he gets up to speed very quickly. He's moved out of their house, and with the move, they've also started the divorce process with Holly. At least he learned how to get a divorce before getting his wife pregnant, because now with 2 alimony payments, he'd be having a really hard time. Although, now that I think about it, maybe he'll have to pay alimony or Holly. I don't know how that works, but it would be funny because with Lauren, he had a baby, and with Holly, it's like he has another daughter the way she is. I love happy endings. Edit. My brother had to pay compensation for the months Holly was married to him and didn't work, but that way he avoids paying alimony. This is for those who asked about these issues.